come into my workshop. So I'll put the heater on, so hopefully So I've got my kilns there, and I sort of wedge up the clay here, and then I've got the wheel over there. Tear bottles are made as an expression of what's in our heart. All different ways they've been slightly interpreted, but the basic idea as a physical manifestation of grief. They go back thousands of years. They're a very biblical idea, obviously, that's come from the Psalms, I think. American Civil War brides used to keep tears as well. Back to Egyptian, to Roman, there's so many archaeological finds of tear bottles, and they were a particular size where you would physically actually collect your tears in this bottle. Victorians, they would have stoppers, take the stoppers out, and when the tears had evaporated, if you'd cried into them when someone had died, then when the tears had evaporated, then your time of mourning was over. So it became a marker as well, which can be quite helpful for a time of mourning.
Deborah Tompsett began working on her tear bottle project in 2007.
Kneading the clay, it's a kind of spiral movement, just gets the sort of consistency nice and even through the clay there. Our fist and our heart are meant to be the same size. So I'm thinking this one's probably about my size or someone's slightly bigger. So I'm going to make one tear bottle from that lump, and then from this one I'm going to make several very small little tear bottles. Baby's one would be tiny little fist, so it'd be a tiny little ball of clay for them, but again made off a hump, a larger bit. Just going to wet, and I stand to throw. Some people sort of sit, but I quite like this. Then you've got your weight, your shoulders over on it there. That's just thumping it down, making sure. I think as the idea evolved, it was the idea to make 1,000. It was like a big number. It was a challenge, and to make each of them as different as possible. So for me, that was a really good, challenging project. That top is quite uneven, which sometimes you can leave it uneven if it suits the pot, but this time I'm going to just make it really even. The narrative of each of them being different, as we are all, highly individual. Some of them are like cylindrical shapes, and you do a variation on a size, a bit like a series, and then others are totally different, and to use very different clay, but not to cover them with a glaze, to try and keep the clay as an honest material as possible. So you might get the effect of smoke burning sort of impact from the environment on it, or you might smooth it, but you're not covering it with something. It's so if you hold it, you will feel the clay. So that was set fire to yesterday evening, and then there's a tear bottle that's gone in here. It was burnished, so it's smooth, and then it was put in the sawdust, tucked in. This is sort of ash from the newspaper that catches fire to it, and then that's sort of the sawdust there. So you'll get these random marks that are caused by the sawdust as it falls down and burns against it. So these are all carbon marks, and then it's sort of white inside. So what I'll do next is wash it, get rid of all that, and then put some wax on it, and that will really bring out those marks. It's a very basic response, isn't it? You don't want people to come with a whole theological vocabulary almost to meet it. It's about human beings and our response to the really, I can't say can I, but the really shitty stuff that happens in life, and that's where we're all at the same level, and there's all that meeting ground for all of us.
The project expanded with an installation of 1,000 tear bottles in Chichester Cathedral, England, during 2015.
We put in a proposal to Chichester Cathedral, and the first idea was to have like 1,000 bottles for 1,000 hours, and to do it through Lent, so that it would link with that time leading up to Easter. It was lovely to feel part of the cathedral, the whole history of it, the history of worship that gone on in there, and to be part of that was fantastic. At that point it's quite good because you then feel slightly detached from it because it has to do its own thing at that point, and it's up to people how they come in and respond to it.
The cathedral installation attracted a wider interest.
My dad happened to stumble across some tear bottles in Chichester Cathedral, and we together got in touch with the artist to see if she'd be interested in collaborating with us. She was. I knew of Grant Thornton's space and just thought it was an amazing opportunity to bring something like this to St Albans. So we're specifically raising money for Mind and Mid Hearts, so helping people with mental health issues based in Hertfordshire.
Our purpose is to connect with the community in the widest sense, and doing something like this, which I think has got really broad spectrum appeal to people. There's a huge amount of people who are going to come through the door today to experience it, enjoy it, take something away, and everyone will take away something different, and that's no different to corporate life, is it?
The coming together of 1,000 tear bottles and raising funds for mental health felt like an idea, so we wanted to bring some really interesting people with different backgrounds together to see if they could come up with a new concept. We have fundraisers, we have people from mental health charities, we have people with web skills, digital marketers, social media marketers, so a really good combination of interesting people.
Interest in tear bottles is growing, and there are possibilities for further links with mental health.
This is something tangible that people can hold. It's very symbolic, and something that might help people who maybe don't have words but actually have something very symbolic that represents their loss. It's marvellous.
There won't be, I suspect, anyone who in their wider networks hasn't been touched with some form of mental health issue, or indeed people have experienced it themselves. So it's awareness raising. So from that point of view, the kind of flagship element of this, of raising awareness, is fantastic as well.
Emotion, expressions of feeling has a very open, broad link to our mental well-being. And I think for some people, tear bottles going down to an expression of grief have been a really poignant and moving way to have a physicality of what they're feeling, particularly if you've made it yourself.
My auntie took her own life 2 years ago, and this is about remembering her for me. It's also about making sure that something like that doesn't happen to another family in the future, if we can do anything to prevent that. I
have an idea of why I made the art piece, but that's up to people looking at it to respond in the way that they would like to. It's not up to me to direct what I think they should be getting from it. So the fact that some people email you and say it just meant so much to me, and in that scale and in that setting, and then putting it in other settings, people still get a response to it. And it's very moving and it's very humbling that people do get something from it like that.